Investigators are on the case this morning after officers in Kansas City, Kansas opened fire, shot a suspect late last night.
KBC 9's Matt Evans is live at KCK Police Department right now with what we know. Matt.
Well, we know there were no serious injuries involved in all of this. No injuries to the officers involved in this shooting. Also, the person that was shot by police is expected to survive. Police called last night about 11 o'clock to 25th and Oakland on a person that was trying to break into a car. When they arrived, a resident had said that someone tried to break into their car. When they confronted that suspect, the person fired a gun into the air and then ran off. Police able to track down that suspect thanks to a very detailed description. And when police found him, the suspect pointed a gun at officers and they fired. That person shot, taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Police have wrapped up their on-scene investigation. However, they're still looking into the events leading up to that shooting. It's now being investigated by the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department Major Case Unit. Live in KCK this morning, Matt Evans, KBC 9 News.
This morning, a portion of I-35 back open after being shut down for more than 3 hours yesterday. This was the scene. Look at that, a semi catching fire quickly, going up in flames, just blanketing the interstate in thick black smoke. Darren Tidd was behind the wheel of that semi when it burst into flames. He says he saw someone waving him down, trying to let him know that his truck was on fire. That's when he pulled over and saw those flames.
Going to try and unhook my truck and save my truck, but it's too late.
Thankfully, he was not hurt, but that fire did cause problems for those stuck in rush hour traffic and for several people who had parked their cars underneath the bridge. Burning debris fell from the bridge and torched 2 other cars.
That car and I had a personal relationship. I was going to get 300,000 miles on it.
I'm not going to park under a bridge ever again.
So far, it still isn't clear what caused that semi to catch on fire, but bridge engineers from MoDOT did go out to examine the bridge and said it was safe for the interstate to reopen.
Wow. Okay, 5:33, primaries now less than a week away, 6 days to go. If you live in Jackson County, though, you should know your vote won't count, at least when it comes to the Democratic primary for Jackson County Sheriff. That's because a judge canceled the vote. That ruling comes after the Jackson County Democratic Committee sued, claiming that the county legislature just didn't have the legal authority to reopen the filing period for candidates. That argument happened after former Sheriff Mike Sharp resigned in April. Now, the race will still appear on next week's ballot because it's on the ballot. It's too late to remove it. County Democratic Committee will nominate its candidate August 21st, and then the voters will decide in the general election in November. If you were hoping to vote early by mail in Johnson County, well, you shouldn't have waited so long. It's too late. Advanced voting applications were due last night at 5 o'clock. You can still vote ahead of time in person at any of the 6 locations in Johnson County, so that's good. Mail-in ballots must be postmarked by next Tuesday, Election Day. An Overland Park company is expanding, adding more than 1,000 jobs to the area. Kansas Governor Jeff Collier announced the expansion of Shamrock Trading Corporations. Right now, the company employs 700 people at their business in 95th and Metcalf. Soon, another 1,000 will begin working in the building the company bought right across the street. So far, Shamrock hasn't submitted any redevelopment plans to the city of Overland Park. We'll keep an eye on it.
5:34 right now, and a 19-year-old is facing charges this morning in connection with a deadly road rage shooting that happened over the weekend. Trayvon Shepard faces multiple charges, including second-degree murder. He's accused of shooting and killing Leonard Joyner III after a collision at 51st and Troost on Sunday. Shepard's girlfriend is also charged with interfering in the investigation. Relatives of an Indiana family who lost 9 family members in that Table Rock Lake tragedy are calling for a duck boat ban. They've now filed a second lawsuit seeking damages from the owners and operators of the boat. One family member says an entire branch of her family tree is now gone.
I don't want anybody else to go through this ever again. There's an emptiness that'll never be filled.
Just devastating. Lawyers for the Coleman family filed a $100 million lawsuit on Sunday. Both suits accuse the operators and makers of duck boats of putting profits over safety. And as the investigation into that tragedy continues, Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill is now calling for change.
She is calling for new restrictions when it comes to duck boats. Senator is introducing a bill on Capitol Hill hoping to improve duck boat safety and implement past recommendations that have already been made by the NTSB. Senator says that there's no reason to wait. We do know that attorneys for some of the family members of the 17 people who died are calling for an outright ban on boats, as you heard from the Coleman family. 2 days ago, the Missouri Attorney General's office confirmed there's an open criminal investigation into what happened. So still a lot of questions, chief among them, what was going on, because that severe weather warning was out half an hour before the first 911 call.
And the weather turned so quickly that we saw there.
It did. It happened fast with that warning over half an hour, alerting everyone there in Branson, Table Rock Lake that damaging wind gusts were imminent. And there was a watch that was issued earlier in the morning, which called for severe thunderstorms later in the afternoon. So watches and warnings, they were out in plenty of time. 88 degrees, low humidity right now. Typical summer heat for today. About 90 degrees, just about anywhere you go. Maybe some upper 80s here, East Kansas City, Lee Summit, Marshall, and Sedalia. It's going to feel even hotter than this heading into the weekend. I'm going to show you the heat index values as we get into the next week. It's coming up.
All right, Nick, thanks. The owner of a barbecue restaurant in Johnson County is headed to trial. This is Matthew Sander, runs Smokin' Joe's Barbecue in Olathe. He's accused of using a customer's lost credit card in a spending spree. Sanders faces 24 felony and misdemeanor financial charges. He's pleaded not guilty to all of them. Back in January, a customer left a credit card at his restaurant, and then someone charged more than $7,000 on it. Olathe police say they have video of Sander making the purchases.
A safety alert this morning. We're entering into snake bite season.
You just got to be careful. One dog owner is trying to warn others just about how dangerous snakes can be. And they're using the little pup as an example here. This is Winston. He's a cute little guy. He's recovering right now after being bitten by a copperhead, of course, venomous snake. He's on pain meds and antibiotics, and his family says they noticed something was wrong with his face, so they rushed him to the vet.
By this time, it was so big that you could see where the fangs actually went in. And he said he got bit by a copperhead.
The veterinarians say swelling is often a surefire sign you need to get help right away. As for Winston, he's just recovering. Family says he should be back to his normal self within the next few days.
Oh, such a precious dog. 5:38 right now. We have a traffic alert for you this morning. That construction project along 470, it was delayed because of rain this past weekend, and now it's back on. It's scheduled to start Friday night at 8 o'clock and run through the weekend until Monday morning. Traffic in both directions along 470 from 39th Street to the Little Blue River will be down to just one lane, so you can expect some major delays there.
All right, good to know. 5:38, a jury has been seated in the trial of Paul Manafort, the president's former campaign chairman. He faces federal tax evasion and bank fraud charges. Here's ABC's Stephanie Ramos with the latest.
Paul Manafort, President Trump's former campaign manager, left the federal courthouse in Alexandria, Virginia after 7 hours in court for the first day of his criminal trial. Prosecutors say Manafort believed he was above the law, that he lied to the IRS and knowingly filed false tax returns, failing to report tens of millions of dollars he made working for a Ukrainian political party with deep ties to Russia. Prosecutors accused Manafort of hiding the money in offshore bank accounts, opening more than 30 accounts in 3 countries, and using the cash to bankroll his lavish lifestyle that included luxury real estate, tailored suits, and a $15,000 custom jacket made from an ostrich. In all, Manafort faces 18 counts of financial crimes. This is the first trial stemming from the special counsel's investigation into potential ties between Trump's presidential campaign and Russia. But prosecutors say the issue of Russian involvement in the election will not come up. The president now distancing himself from the man who once ran his campaign.
Paul Manafort worked for me for a very short period of time.
Special counsel Robert Mueller's star witness is Manafort's former business partner Rick Gates, who also served as the president's deputy campaign manager through the election. Gates pleading guilty to conspiracy and making false statements in exchange for his testimony. Manafort's lawyer said Tuesday Gates is willing to say anything to save himself.
Manafort has pleaded not guilty to all charges. If convicted, though, he could spend the rest of his life in prison, or there's always the offhand chance he could receive a pardon from the president.
5:40 right now, a chaotic scene in Mexico last night after a plane crashes just shortly after takeoff. 101 people were on board, but incredibly, all of them survived. State authorities in Mexico are checking the burned out hull of that plane. 49 of the 101 on board did have to be taken to the hospital. Some of the people on board were even able to wander back to the airport to try to find their relatives. The Aeromexico jetliner crashed into a field after trying to take off during a storm. Authorities believe it caught fire after everyone escaped. KU is seeing an increase in mental health needs. A new report found counseling and psychological services had 120 visits in May. That's up 73% from last year. The school says part of the reason is an increase in early recognition, plus the stigma related to mental health issues is decreasing. The top concerns with students right now are anxiety and depression.
One of Michael Phelps' records gets smashed by a 10-year-old. You don't usually hear that. We'll introduce you to the preteen swimming phenom who's already making waves. Plus, Kansas City Royals look for a win in the Windy City. How one rookie stole the show and helped put KC one step closer to victory.
Summer's back. Temperatures close to 90 degrees this afternoon, into the 90s for the weekend. And we have to start talking about heat index values again as they'll creep up to about 95.